This is Angelo Pizzullo, manager of the Oral History Program with Battleship New Jersey in Camden, New Jersey. Today is Tuesday, July 24th, 2018. We are on board the Battleship New Jersey, and our interview guest is Kevin Swan from Woodstock, Illinois. Mr. Swan served aboard USS New Jersey from 1987 to 1990 and was an operations intelligence crew member and part of her last cruise working in combat operations. Welcome home, Mr. Swan.
Thank you.
What's your current age?
51.
Okay, and when did you enlist?
I enlisted in November 1986.
And how old were you when you enlisted?
Oh my goodness, 19.
All right. And what was your... Well, before we go there, let's talk about what you went through to get in the Navy.
Okay. As far as boot camp?
Well, before that,
Oh,
just,
before-
did you go through delayed entry?
I did. I went
How did you
through-
talk to a recruiter? Did they come to you?
Right.
Did you go to them?
Well, I remember I got out of high school, went to a semester of college because that seemed like the thing to do. Flunked out, and then went to work in a restaurant for about 6 months and decided I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So I liked water, so I thought the Navy would be a good choice, good fit. So
Okay.
I went into the delayed entry program. I don't remember for how long, probably 3 or 4 months, and actually went. I was enlisted in November of '86.
Okay. And what was your inspiration for joining the Navy?
Well, I remember seeing Top Gun. I believe that came out before, but I always liked the water, and it was kind of just soothing, I guess. But it was I didn't have anything specific. I didn't have any family members, with any prior military experience. So I don't know, just the water part. I like the ocean.
All right. Now, where did you go to boot camp?
Great Lakes.
And you have any stories that stand out about your boot camp experience or what you went through?
I remember on my first real day after we went through the whole processing thing, I've always been kind of a jokester, and so we were lined up in our barracks, and the company commanders were, I guess, introducing themselves, and I said something funny, or I laughed, and company commander didn't find it all that funny, so I found out what 4-point push-ups are very quickly. So I learned from that point to just kind of shut up, and if you're in the background, it was probably better.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right. Now, did you go to any A schools?
I did.
And where did you go for them? And any stories about those experiences?
No real stories. It was I went to anti-submarine air controller school, A school, and it was in Dam Neck, Virginia, basically in Virginia Beach. And I don't remember anything really significant from that. I did well enough that I got to pick my orders, and I picked the New Jersey.
All right. That was our next question. When you first found out that you were being assigned in New Jersey, which was your wish, what was your reaction?
I was pretty excited. I mean, I picked it because it had a lot of history, and it was a ship that just had a lot of meaning, and it was a big part of our history in as far as the Navy is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you first saw the USS New Jersey, where was it at, and what was your initial reaction to seeing it live?
So I reported to New Jersey in Long Beach, California, and it was in dry dock. So it actually appeared much larger, obviously, than it would have in the sitting in the water. But it was really hard to tell because there was plastic all over the place, and they were sandblasting the hull, and but I was just in awe of how huge it was. So that was pretty cool.
All right. Any stories you'd like to share about just life on board in general, your daily routine, as far as, not specifically to your duty station, because I want to get into that a little bit, but just everyday life, waking up and all things like that. Your watch stations.
Yeah, our where I worked, it was manned. The two spots that we manned were 24/7. So we would do 7 on, 7 off, 5 on, 5 off. And in your off time, you obviously slept. They had a small weight room, if I remember correctly, and so exercising. And it really depended if you were at sea, obviously, or not. You definitely got to know your shipmates that were in your division very well, and did a lot of reading. So.
All right. So let's talk about your general quarters station, and where was it, and what were your job duties there for general quarters?
General quarters was CIC, which is Combat Information Center. So we had all the different radars, plotting charts, so navigation equipment. So we were part of the operations, so we could plot other aircraft and ships that were around us that were either friendly or not friendly. And then part of the navigation, we would do dead reckoning. And that was about it, really, for CIC.
All right. Now, you also, on your normal duty, worked in CEC.
Correct.
Can you give us a little more detailed background of what went on in the Combat Engagement Center, which was your primary operations?
Right. Combat Engagement Center is where, again, there was a lot of the radar consoles, navigation equipment, but we also had the different weapons consoles, control, stations for the Harpoon and Tomahawk missile systems. And then I also, what I went to A school for, which actually A school was operations specialist, and then I went to a specialized school in San Diego for anti-submarine air control. And when I was in Combat Engagement Center is where I would use that skill. And I think we only have 1 or 2 on our ship. Do you want me to go into?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you're allowed to.
Okay.
And we know some of that is actually still considered secret,
Right.
so we don't want to get you in trouble.
No, basically what we would do is we would, I would look at a radar screen and actually talk to a P-3 Orion, which is a anti-submarine aircraft, and they would have what's called a magnetic anomaly detector, which it was just this long cable, and they would run out the long cable out of the back of the airplane, and that would ping, so that would generate sonar and any returns that it would get off of any submarines under there. So I would be talking to the plane, and then they would fly in specific patterns, and I would plot those on the radar screen, and then they would drop sonar buoys in the water. So you would fly them and talk to them, and they'd fly in different patterns. So that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. You have any incidents or things like that? Close calls while you were in CEC?
No.
Any ships that got a little too close?
Well, yes, actually there was, and I believe I was in CEC at the time. There was, so we had a couple of alarms on the ship. One was the salvo alarm, which is they would sound that before they fired any of the guns. They had a chemical biological attack alarm, which never did hear that one, fortunately. And then they also had a collision alarm, and that did go off one time, which is enough. And I don't know how close the ship was, but it was close enough to sound the alarm, and so that was kind of exciting.
Do you know what kind of ship it was?
I don't. I believe it was a freighter of some other country origin. I don't. But I believe that was when we were down. It was south of the equator, I want to say, closer to maybe Australia, somewhere down there.
Okay. Any ports of call stand out? And
Yeah,
what were some of the different ones?
I would say for Asia, Hong Kong was really neat, very culturally diverse, really, really cool. Thailand was unique. Singapore was beautiful. It was very clean. I remember there. But I would have to say Australia. We were there for their bicentennial, and that was really cool. We started on the west coast in Perth, and then came around to the east coast. We went to Brisbane, and then Sydney. And we were there for the bicentennial celebration, and then we went to Hobart in Tasmania. So all those ports were really, really cool. The people were great, and it was just it was a lot of fun.
Mhm. So, since we're talking about the Australia bicentennial cruise, do you have any stories from that of meeting the people, giving the tours on the ship, or going on shore? Anything stand out?
Yeah, when I was on shore, I want to say it was in Sydney. There was all kinds of other ships there from other countries as part of their bicentennial celebration, and so a couple of shipmates and myself were invited on it was an Australian ship, and I don't recall obviously the name of the ship, but they were just super people, great guys, and could definitely drink. I could tell you that for sure. But it was a lot of fun, just great, super nice people overall in Australia. Just very accommodating, and it was really nice.
Now, the ship did allow tours, correct, for the Australian
Yes.
Do you remember how long the lines were, or how many people were going through the ship?
A lot.
Mhm.
It seemed like where we pulled in, everywhere we pulled in Australia, there was a long line of people. Yeah, a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. They ask you about stories of the battleship or its actions during World War II?
No, not so much. We would have people. I do remember. We had protesters pulling into ports. Greenpeace. We had. I remember one instance where I think it was I don't know if it was a lady or a gentleman. Actually, somehow got way up onto the one of the higher spots on the ship, and somehow. Shamed herself or something, and had to be removed. But no, not really. We were asked, if we had any. I think we were asked if we had any kind of nuclear weapons every once in a while, and we were all, told to say you can either confirm or deny. But that was pretty typical. So no, nothing really out of the ordinary.
All right. Did you have a favorite port of call? And what was it and why?
I would have to say it was Perth, Australia. Just the people were just really nice, and just very down to earth.
All right. Any travels through the Panama Canal?
No.
All right. Did you have any travels where you crossed the equator?
Yes.
And did you have to do the shellback ceremony?
Yes.
Without getting too much into it, of course, it's up to you how much you want to describe. You want to describe your experience of that?
Well, it was a very unique experience, and I would say, I don't know definitively, but I would say a lot of the stuff that they did then, they more than likely don't do now, but it was definitely unique. Some of the things that we did. I mean, we had to crawl on our hands and knees for a good portion of the day, crawl through garbage chutes. They would, one of the more weight challenged people on the ship, they would, I think it was like a milk dud. You would have to suck the milk dud out of his belly button, and his stomach was smeared with peanut butter. You'd have to, another thing that we would have to fish something out, like an apple out of a toilet, with the toilet water was kind of gross, we'll say. Eat green spaghetti for breakfast. I think they were called shillelaghs, which is just section of water hose, and you would be tapped, but not so lightly with those as you walked around in your hands and knees. But it was all in good fun, and it was definitely an experience. And not a lot of guys were able to go through that, or not, so that was pretty cool.
You still have your shellback card somewhere?
Somewhere, I do, yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere.
All right. Now, in your normal operations, did you ever get to meet? Were you on board for Captain Katz and Captain Tucker?
Yes, both.
Okay. Did you ever get to meet either of them briefly, or
I did.
any interactions?
Captain Katz, I did. I was awarded Sailor of the Month shortly after I got to the ship. I don't recall what month I was, so he presented that to me. So I think that was the only time I got to meet him, and I don't remember if I actually had the opportunity to meet Captain Tucker, but they were both pretty good guys from what I get.
Now, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Now, could you describe if there was any difference in their command style?
No, not to my knowledge. I really couldn't. Although, when Captain Katz was CO, I think it was a much calmer time in the world. So, things where I would say the overall environment was more calm. Other than that, I can't really make any distinction one way or the other.
All right. So you spent a lot of time in CEC. Do you remember any of your TAOs, and what were they like? For the record, that's Tactical Action Officer.
Right. A couple of them, because typically they were Lieutenant JGs, so they were, I guess, more, what would you call it, like just younger officers, and most of them were actually pretty cool. I remember a couple of them. Some were really down to earth, and you have to remember in CIC we were, it was manned 24/7, so there was, we'll just say there was a lot of kind of downtime. So it was you got to know people really well. But it was cool.
Okay. Now, were you on board for the change of command ceremony? And what do you remember from that, from Katz to Tucker?
Yes, I was.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that, as a young sailor, there was a lot of, I'll say, like formality, which was pretty cool. Other than that, I don't remember a whole heck of a lot from it. Just a lot of brass, and yeah, just.
Now, were you on board for PAC-X 8990.
Yes.
All right. You have anything you can share from that experience?
That is, oh yeah, that's when we went to the, believe that's when we went to the Gulf.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that from that cruise, I mean, as far as the Middle East, was when we were sailing through the Straits of Hormuz. We were at general quarters. I don't remember the little island that we went past, but I want to say their fire control radars were locked on us. So that was a little, there was some anxiety there. And then when we got into the Persian Gulf, we pulled into United Arab Emirates, and then is it Dubai? That's in United Arab Emirates, and then Kuwait, I think. No, I'm sorry, Bahrain.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very different. I mean, it's very, the cultures are very different. I remember, again, young person that's never really experienced different countries and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
Okay. You didn't happen to have an encounter with Admiral J. Paul Reason,
No.
have you? Okay.
No.
All right. Now, during PAC-X 8990, did you remember any weapons testing, and what was that like?
Well, we would fire on occasion. We would even, when we weren't on a cruise, we would use. I think it was it Seal Beach? We would unload. That's where Seal Beach was where we would unload our weapons, and then there was an island off the coast of San Diego. I don't remember. It was right next to Catalina Island. Anyway, it was where we there was a firing range there, so that's where we would practice shooting the 16-inch guns. But I believe on the PAC-X I know we fired Harpoon. I don't recall if we did the Tomahawks, but we would fire the 16-inch and 5-inch on occasion. Mm-hmm. But I want to say actually during that there was, I don't remember if it was, I know it was when I was in, but there was the accident on the Iowa in one of their 16-inch magazines where there were several sailors that were killed, and there was a time where there was a moratorium put on firing them. I just don't recall what the time frame was there.
Okay. And do you remember, since we'll talk about the Iowa, do you remember the mood of the crew when they heard about it?
Yeah, it was pretty scary because at the time nobody really knew what happened. So they didn't know if it was some kind of a malfunction in equipment or what it was. Mm-hmm. So obviously being the same class of ship, there was some anxiety with that.
All right. Now, were you part of the decommissioning crew?
For a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I got out or left the ship. I got out of the Navy officially in November of '90, but I want to say I had some leave saved up, so I got out in October maybe. So when I got out, the ship was, it wasn't in dry dock, but it was, we had pulled in, and I believe they were starting to decommission it, but I'm not exactly sure the date.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that was the next question is, when did you get out of the Navy?
Oh, okay.
So, now, any last reflections on your naval career to this point?
I think as a young person, I don't think you appreciate it maybe as much as you do as you get older, and as much as I do now. But I don't have any regrets. I think for someone, a young person that really didn't know what he wanted from life and didn't have a lot of direction, obviously, it it gives you, well, it kind of forces responsibility, accountability, and then I was able to kind of prove to myself that I could do well in something more academic. And then I took advantage of whatever opportunities for advancement, and I don't regret it. I got to go some pretty cool places where most people wouldn't get to go, I'm proud.
Okay. Now, is this the first time you've been back to New Jersey since disembarking as a sailor?
No, actually, my son and I made a trip out here 2 years ago, so that was my first trip back.
Okay, and do you remember your reaction the first time you saw her again?
That was pretty cool. Yeah, it was neat. It definitely brought back a lot of memories, and actually it's a lot bigger than I had remembered. Yeah, it did. It brought back a lot of memories. Yeah.
And today, you got to see your old CIC station and CEC and your berthing area, but which the racks are gone, but you got to see your berthing area.
Right.
How was that?
This time I think it's a different perspective, and I was able to really take, I think, more time and really appreciate things. And so I would say that I have a lot more vivid memories now than the last time I was here, and being able to share it with my son is pretty special.
Okay. Now, looking back, what impact on your life did naval service have for you?
I think, like I said, the sense of responsibility, accountability, I had established some really great friendships, along the time in the 4 years, and just a kind of a sense of belonging and being a part of something that was bigger was really something that I think will stay with me.
All right. So let's fast forward to from the time you got out of the Navy to today. Just give us a background of your post-Navy life, career, family,
Sure.
where you're at.
Yep. So once I got out of the Navy, the ship was in Long Beach. I moved back to Arizona, which is where I pretty much grew up, in Flagstaff, and kind of by default, I got into construction, and I've been in construction in some fashion since then. So for, I don't know, almost 30 years I've been in construction. I have 2 beautiful children, and came out to, I live in Illinois now. I came out to Illinois in the, it was in the mid-90s. I followed a friend out, and so I'm in construction, work for a healthcare system in Illinois, and life is pretty darn good.
All right. Now, this is going to be viewed by historians or researchers well into the future. Any legacy commentary you'd like to make as a closing?
No, I don't think so. I just look back on it as a really neat time in my life, and I think at least for me, as I get older, the more I appreciate it. And I'm really proud to say that I was a part of not only the service, but part of a ship that has a lot of history, and I was proud to be able to serve my country.
All right. Well, this will conclude the interview. Thank you for your service and taking time to join us. This concludes the interview. This is Angelo Pizzullo, manager of the Oral History Program on the Battleship New Jersey, and we are inside the Battleship New Jersey in Camden, New Jersey. Today is Tuesday, July 24th, 2018. Our interview guest was Kevin Swan from Woodstock, Illinois. This recording and any transcripts, abstracts, or indexes made from the recordings will be stored in the Oral History Department of the Battleship New Jersey, the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project, and the New Jersey State Library System. All recordings will be made available to writers, researchers, teachers, and historians upon request. This is Angelo Pizzullo signing off.